How you doing, everybody? This is Robyn live for the Robyn's Nest, giving you another Robyn's Rant. And as you can see, this is my second rant on Trayvon Martin, and I will do my absolute best to keep this brief. First of all, I want to say thank you to all of the people who watched my video yesterday, even to some of the haters. And you know what? Hey, haters gonna hate. Let them do what they gotta do. That's on them. I don't care. But some of the comments really made me think, because I was like, some of these people are actually blaming this kid. And it really pisses me off, because you know something, my thing is, if you want to talk about past so much, if you want to talk about Trayvon's past, how come you're not saying anything about George Zimmerman's past? George Zimmerman, since you want to talk about past so much, he has a record of not once, not twice, but 3 times raising his hand against a woman. Doesn't matter what the woman did or said, he beats women. Now, maybe he's changed, maybe he doesn't do that anymore, but he did it in the past. And also, he had 2 confrontations with police, one that ended non-violently, one that did. So you've gone from confrontation to abuse of women to now murder. This is escalating, okay? On top of it, it seems like little Georgie boy, whenever he does anything wrong, he always has his parents, his mommy and daddy, to back him up. And the reason why is because his mommy and daddy are former members of the justice system. His dad was a judge, and I think his mom was a court stenographer. I might be wrong about that, but she too worked for the justice system. So if you want to talk about past so much, let's do it all the way around. Let's talk about George Zimmerman's past if you're going to want to talk about Trayvon Martin's past so much. And while we're at it, why don't we also talk about your past, viewers? I know I said thank you for the views, and I thank you so much, but still in all, let's talk about it. Let's talk about your past. If you want to bring up somebody else's past, come on, did they deserve to die for what? A fight that they had with a bus driver and weed residue and he said, she said crack? No, they don't deserve to die for this. But since you want to talk about his past so much, and I say, let's talk about George Zimmerman's past and let's talk about yours. The people who watched his video and made comments about, oh, well, I think Trayvon was a thug, he was this, he was that, he was the other. You know, some of you who watched my video and commented, some of you have cheated on your wives, hit your girlfriends, impregnated women and didn't live up to your responsibility, didn't pay your child support, beat your kids, probably a lot of other worse stuff out there. Some of you have cheated on your income tax, did your job half-assed, lied. Some of you out there may be pedophiles. Some of you out there may be rapists. Some of you out there may be murderers yourselves. So if you want to sit up there and talk about this kid's past, let's talk about your past. And let's compare the two when we talk about Trayvon's past and George Zimmerman's past. What? A fight with a bus driver, weed residue, compared to 2 altercations with police, 3 abuse of women, and anger management classes. Which is worse? For my money, I take weed residue over beating a woman any day. Well, I'm not into weed. I don't think anybody should do drugs, period, not even weed. But if I had to have my druthers, in which I say the lesser of 2 evils, I'd say the weed residue is a lesser of 2 evils than hitting a woman. But, like I said, you want to talk about past, let's talk about past. And if you want to think about somebody else's past also, you want to throw stones, think about your own. Just make sure that if you're going to throw stones, please don't live in a glass house, okay? But hey, like I said, think about your own past. The shooter's friend, Joe Oliver, that was just painful, okay? I watched the interview and I saw where Joe was trying to go, and I think I understand what he was trying to do, but it just wasn't working, okay? I think George is probably just some guy that he knows and he sees and he talks to every now and then. Maybe has a nice little chit chat every once in a while. Maybe every other day or once a week. But do I think they're like close, buddy, best friends? No. I don't see that. I just think they're just neighbors. They're just neighbors who know each other, and that's just it. But it was very painful to watch. I think Joe Oliver's heart was in the right place. I just think his brain was elsewhere. But that's just me. And as for the situation with Trayvon itself, I think what happened was, since I heard the tapes, I heard the 911 tape from the woman, and also heard the 911 tape from George Zimmerman, I think that it was probably one of two situations. Either A, the kid got scared and he thought this guy was getting ready to harm him, or B, maybe he did think that George Zimmerman was probably a cop or neighborhood watch or whatever, undercover police officer, and he probably thought that Zimmerman thought that he had a prejudice against him, because we as African Americans, we live with that. We live with that belief that if we're walking down the street and if somebody sees us and they're looking at us suspiciously, we start thinking, now, I know I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just walking down the street. I'm a good person. But that person is looking at me like I'm a criminal. That person is thinking that I'm getting ready to do something wrong. And that is probably what went through Trayvon's mind. It's not that he was getting ready to do something wrong. It's just that Trayvon probably thought that this guy was thinking about him the worst. And the worst did happen. Excuse me. And it happens. It happens with all of us. It's even happened to me. I'm not going to go into big, long detail, but I've had incidences where I was just walking down the street, minding my own business, and I had people look at me like I was a thug, like I was going to do something, and I'm not. All I am is just a little African-American woman just living in my neighborhood, just trying to get by. I don't do nothing. I don't do nothing to nobody. I don't cause any kind of trouble, but there are people who do look at me and think the worst. I've had people think the worst about me. If you saw the comment that I made in the info box in my previous video, I had a woman look at me suspiciously just because I was wearing a motorcycle jacket. And I like wearing a motorcycle jacket because it makes me look badass. But just because I like looking badass don't mean that I am a badass. That's what I meant by my previous video, that we need to stop judging a book by a cover. We need to stop thinking that just because somebody's wearing a hood or a motorcycle jacket, or they're not dressed the right way, or they have long hair or whatever, that there's something wrong with them, that they're bad, that they're a criminal, that they're whatever. You end up thinking this about somebody, and they could be like a king or queen, and you don't even know it. That's just like a couple years ago, this police officer harassed this man, this African-American man, and it turns out that he was I think a professor emeritus, highly educated, cultured, and this cop thought the worst. This is why I was saying that we have to stop judging people, and we have to stop judging a book by its cover. And I do believe that, as this one guy, Kevin Kraft, said, I think what happened was the boy got scared because Zimmerman instigated it. He was told to sit in his car and not move, and he didn't follow procedure, and he did it anyway, and disaster happened. And he got into an altercation with this kid. The kid probably whipped his ass, and think about it. This grown-ass man got his ass handed to him by a teenager. He beat him up so bad that he just had to kill him. That's how he says it's self-defense. Well, you know something? It wouldn't have been self-defense if you kept your fat ass in that car in the first damn place, like you was told to. But he didn't listen. And come on, people, you gotta look at it. Remember how it is when we were kids? Ooh, God, the sun's bright. Remember how it was when we were kids and our parents told us, sit down, don't do such and so, and we didn't listen, and we did such and so anyway, and disaster happened, and then our ass get whooped. I know I did. There was countless times when my mom said, Robyn, sit down. Don't do such and so. Okay, mommy. Do I listen? No. I went up, I walked my little fat ass around, I did something I wasn't supposed to do, and bam, something got broke, and that was my ass. So that's probably what happened here. I believe this guy instigated it. I believe he's the one who caught the trouble. I believe that he has anger issues. I believe he do have something in his past that is not right. Will I sit down and say that Trayvon Martin was a saint? No, he wasn't. He was a kid. He was just another foolish little kid. You know, when you're a teenager, you think that you're grown, but you're not. You know, and I don't want to hear no crap. Oh, he was almost 18, he was almost 20, he was this, he was that, he was the other. I love the fact that as time went on, when I was reading some of the comments, Trayvon's size got larger and larger and larger. He went from being a small kid to being over 5'10" to being over 6'2" in another comment. I'm like, oh God, please. People don't even know what the fuck they're talking about. Ooh, excuse me. Well, sorry. People don't know what they're talking about. But like I was saying, kids, they're young, they do foolish things, they make mistakes. Good example. I was talking with a girl yesterday on Twitter. She made some comments that wasn't too cool about some of the African American characters in the Hunger Games. And she realized she made a big mistake. And she owned up to it. And she said, I'm sorry, you know, I apologize. I'm 15 and I was foolish. Forgive me. And for that, I had to respect her for it. Because at least she said, I'm young, I made a mistake. So it's possible that whatever Trayvon Martin had in his past, it was the same thing. You know, he just made a mistake. And even if he did make a mistake, that doesn't mean that he had to be killed for it. Okay? And in George Zimmerman's past, you know, did this guy change? Maybe he did change over the years. Maybe he did successfully complete his anger management program. I don't know. But I do know that there was an escalation there. That he went from confrontation to escalating to beating women, to escalating up to taking a life. And I don't think it's right that every time something bad happens with him, his mommy and his daddy writes a little letter and gets him off because they used to work for the justice system themselves. His father is a retired judge, and his mother is, I think, a retired court stenographer or a court secretary or something. But they work for the justice system, so they easily have a way of helping him get off. Well, you know what? There comes a time when you have to stop and you gotta look at your kids. I understand you want to protect your child for whenever your child gets in some kind of mess. You want to do everything that you can to make their hurt and pain go away. I understand that. But you know what? There comes a time when you have to say, okay, my kid is grown. My kid made a mistake. He has to pay for it. I don't think it's fair. I mean, you know, I understand what his parents tried to do. You know, I've gotten into trouble, you know, in school when I was a kid, like, I don't know, 3rd or 4th grade. We all had our problems, you know. Dad comes to the principal office. They try to talk to the principal so they could, you know, work things out so that the kid, you know, doesn't have to suffer. But there comes a time when you gotta say, okay, this is bad. I just can't get you out of this. Okay, this is really bad, because his parents are trying their best to get him out of his responsibility of taking this young man's life. And this kid's parents, they had to bury their child. You know, it's really not fair when you think about it. You know, his big lug 28-year-old ass is getting off scot-free because mommy and daddy work for the justice system, and mommy and daddy are writing letters talking about, oh, my son isn't bad, and what is it? And the Martin's parents, they don't have their kid anymore. It don't seem fair, does it? But anywho, I guess it is what it is. Maybe I'll understand when I'm a parent someday. That's all I wanted to say. Sorry this ran 2 minutes over than the last video, but again, thank you for everything. Sorry for the crazy lighting in this apartment, but for what it's worth, everybody, thanks and peace as always.